All right. Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our live conversation on International Youth Day 2025, a day that celebrates the potential youth has to offer as a partner in the global society, as well as draw attention to the challenges they face. If you have any questions along the way, please leave them in the chat and we'll take them at the end of the session. And I'm so happy to be doing this conversation with Dr. Himani, molecular biologist turned educator, principal, and coach. She pioneered coaching in schools since 2012, and she leads her school with a vision to embed coaching into the DNA of the school community. Welcome to the session, Dr. Himani.
Thank you, Shivani, and I'm glad to be a part of this conversation with you. And it's equally my pleasure to introduce Ms. Shivani Pal to you, my co-host today. And she is the founder of Tigress Clan, coaches youth, women, and parents. She is also a fierce advocate of authentic living, an ex-HR professional, and mom to two wonderful kids. Glad to be here with you, Shivani.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you for the warm introduction, Dr. Himani. All right. So let me kick off the session with a question for you, Dr. Himani. How did a molecular scientist venture into the coaching world? And more specifically, coaching for young people?
Wonderful question, Shivani. I always love to answer this one. I was a molecular biologist for over 12 years and published quite a few papers. I still carry the mindset and attitude of a researcher, still very curious, still very research oriented. To go back to 2010, 2011, at that time I was in the US, and I was, along with researching, also given the task of teaching repeat biology students. So these students were undergraduate biology students who were struggling with the course, were not doing as well in that course. So incidentally, at the same time, I was also pursuing my coach certification. So I thought that along with teaching them, why not also apply my coaching skills to these students? And to cut the long story short, 6 to 8 months engagement with them through coaching and teaching, their performances improved. And along with the performances, what visibly improved was the classroom engagement, their love for learning, and they opened up in the class. That's the least I could say. And ever since I've become the fierce advocate of coaching, we relocated back, to India. And ever since in schools, I have been experimenting with coaching, be it peer coaching, student council coaching, teacher coaching. So that is about it.
Lovely, lovely. That's a very inspiring story, Dr. Himani. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Shivani. And to throw back the same question at you, what got you into coaching, more specifically coaching young people?
All right. Well, for me, I would say it was a bit of serendipity, general curiosity, and intent. So when I was training under the International Coaching Federation banner, I started doing a lot of pro bono work for youth, and that made me even more curious about this whole space of coaching. Then it was like universe being on my side. Firms started approaching me to be empaneled with them. And these firms were working in the space of youth coaching. And then I became a mother of two. And I started doing my own experiments. So I'm a big advocate of experiments. I have this, just like you come from a research background. So I also come from a science background. And before believing something, I always experiment with it. I started experimenting with coaching for my two sons, and I did see the wonders it had to offer, And then finally, I decided to pick up the space of youth as one of the niches for my venture. So that's my story.
Lovely, more power to you. And I really wish more mothers venture into it. That will completely transform the space of coaching. Thanks for sharing that story, Shivani.
Thank you, Dr. Himani. All right, so let's get started with the conversation now. I think a good starting point for the conversation today would be to assess the youth landscape today. And given the immense number of young people you work with, Dr. Himani, what are some of the biggest challenges you see them facing today?
Shivani, I think all of us are pretty aware of what's going on in terms of digital overwhelm. There is so much of overwhelm around screens, everything, be it homework, social interaction, research, everything is happening on the screens. A lot of information is being thrown at these children without giving them this discernment to be able to differentiate between the right and wrong information. So one thing that research, again, I'm going to be citing a lot of research here, is already there that suggests that continued screen exposure reduces attention span, it reduces focus. So like all of us education, we're noticing that children find it very hard to sit in a sustained manner and focus on their studies. They find it hard to write for the prolonged periods of time. So these very basic cognitive skills have been compromised. Because they are on screen at all times, the social interactions are reduced, their playtime is considerably cut down. And for us, it's very important to understand that we cannot provide them any solutions because our childhood was way different from what they are experiencing today. So one thing is screens. And till date, we do not know how to go about resolving this issue because screens and technology are here to stay. So I feel that is one of the things that is majorly rewiring children's brains and way they think. Both the parents are busy. We are living in nuclear setups these days. Familial ties are weakening. Children don't feel like they can open up to anybody. So there is big dearth of safe spaces for children. I think that is the second very, very important challenge worth mentioning. Well, also a lot of demands on their time. For example, now as a school, as a principal, I would want grades. Parents would want grades. And there is a culture of constant comparison with the peers on the social media. So all of that is leading to, again, I would use the word overwhelm because it fits in everywhere. These are some of the challenges, I think, of the youth today. That I see.
No, I think I even in my work, I see something very similar and I relate to this theme of overwhelming that you spoke about. And if I were to share that some of the challenges that I see in the space for young adults and fresh graduates, while I see a lot of what you did share, technology, pressure, lack of safe spaces, there's one constant theme that I see in all of the challenges, and that's lack of safe spaces. Just given the nature of this life stage, the youngsters are still forming their perception, identity, self-worth. I remember one of my coaches sharing that, Shivani, do you know, my generation is one of the most misunderstood generations. And I think what he was really trying to tell me, apart from, I'm sure he read it in one of the places, but what he wanted to tell me was that I need a supportive and non-judgmental environment that lets me learn from my mistakes and experience. And that has been one of the biggest aha moments for me. While coaching youngsters, they are, youngsters, they are high aspiring individuals with great potential. But they could genuinely be struggling with things like peer pressure, performance pressure, digital and social media pressure, and the lack of safe spaces to voice out their struggles or even aspirations. It's one of the biggest challenges that I also see for the youth. So thank you for sharing, Dr. Himani.
Absolutely. I think that phrase, non-judgmental, is the key phrase today for all of us to adapt. And schools have to play a very important role here because, like I said, both parents working, constraints of time are very much there. And school can offer that support to children. So schools can play a very instrumental role in providing that safe space to children.
It's so great to hear you speak like this, Dr. Himani, because I think you sit in this position of possibilities of change. You can have this ripple effect on society. So I really hope more schools follow the lead, that the kind of work that you're doing. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. All right. So now that we've spoken about challenges, Dr. Himani, let's move towards hope, solutions. Now, when we talk about solutions, there are a lot of words that go on out there. Mentoring, counseling, coaching. So can you share with us how is coaching different from all the above, mentoring and counseling?
Absolutely, Shivani. I think counseling in school scenario is one of the very popular modalities. And it is derived from the word counsel, that is advice. So counseling heavily relies on advising young people. And it's usually to overcome some kind of a psychological or emotional issue. Whereas mentoring comes from a space of when somebody more experienced, somebody wiser can offer you some wisdom, maybe some knowledge, some guidance, along with sometimes they can even offer you their network, right? But coaching is creating a safe space. That's all it is. You create a space where the coachee can explore, can reflect in a non-judgmental environment, it is enabling the coachee to find his or her own solutions. So the very premise that coaching works on is that anyone is capable. Anyone has that potential to find his or her own solutions, provided they get that environment. And as coaches, our task is to create that safe environment around them.
Love.
Why I kind of made it clear.
Yeah. I think that maybe I'll reiterate one statement from what all you shared for the audience. Anyone is capable. I think that's such a powerful statement.
Absolutely. And because we are talking in the context of young people, many a times there is this misgiving that young children or children maybe 10 years, 12 years, 15 years can't be coached. It's adults or grown-ups that who can be coached. So this is a misconception that we are also trying to address. Very talented couple of coaches in my team also who are doing a wonderful work with children and getting some wonderful initiatives started. So I firmly believe in the power of coaching, especially for young people, as young as maybe 12 years of age.
Lovely. I completely agree to that. In fact, that was something I was going to ask, that in India, coaching has usually been associated with corporates. And usually the executives. Coaching for youth is something that's not that common. So thanks for sharing your perspective on that, Dr. Himani, how coaching can be instrumental in bringing about change even in the field of education. Thanks.
I think coaching in education is that big idea whose time has come, especially in our country.
Lovely.
I would also want to ask you, Shivani, that I am majorly talking and working in the arena of schools.
Yeah.
You also work with those Gen Zs that are just transitioning to work.
Yeah.
All over the internet, it's being talked about how managers and HRs are finding it so difficult to deal with Gen Zs and their way of working. What do you have to say about that? Can coaching help here?
Sure. No, I think coaching has a massive role to play here too. When this transition happens for students from the educational field to the corporate field, the chessboard and players are completely different. You go from an absorption to a delivery mode. You go from being managed to managing stakeholders mode. You go from being dependent to independent mode. There are a lot of changes. So let's say if teens is a lot about changes within the body, this is a lot about changes in the environment outside. And just like for teens, providing a safe space to have conversation, even in this space, helps.
Yeah. Now, I would want to revisit that question that you just asked, that the popular notion is that coaching is for corporates and not for schools. So I would want to sort of describe in a nutshell my journey of how it has been in schools. So I did an experiment long back with 8th graders where I demonstrated coaching to them in the classroom. I coached one person and they watched how it was done. And after that, created pairs, buddies. These buddies coached each other for good 6 to 8 months. And there were all sorts of goals that they were setting for themselves. There were goals as simple as how to get along well with your sibling, or how to get good marks, or maybe how to get better at playing flute. There were all kinds of goals that they set. And without much intervention from my side as a facilitator, they all carried on with this process for good 8-9 months. And I saw remarkable outcomes. And more than what they achieved, what was important was that they were more confident. Their confidence grew. They could see the growth. They had more agency and control over their growth. Nobody was dictating. No teacher was telling them. No parent was telling them what to do. But they were, along with their peers, they had taken on a journey and they were making good strides on it. So there was a lot of improvement in the confidence levels.
Lovely.
So that was one experiment that I post that there was, you see, typically student council students are the ones who are aspirational, who are juggling multiple priorities in a school. Some of them are getting coached for competitive exams. They have home tuitions many a times. They are into their sports classes. They also have to achieve the council goals. There's so many conflicting priorities at a time. That age, if coach can create that space where they can be gently held, right? A safe space to discuss, to vent, to reflect, to create solutions. And again, you see wonders happening there. And I would give you an example. a very talented coach in my team. She's also here in the audience. I can see Yagyanika. She has coached student council. She is currently coaching many student leaders. And one of the child proposed the idea that why not we have a space on the website where children can just go and put their feedback, concerns, and issues that would give more voice to the student council and in general the student body. And she proposed that idea and she made it happen. So they're leaving a legacy. They're just not thinking about themselves. They're having a purpose. So they're just achieving remarkable feat. And I've seen this since 2012. This has been happening over and over again. So that's why I say that I'm a firm believer in coaching. And I think we need to also train educators as coaches. So we talk such a lot about executive presence in corporates. I think the time now has come to talk about educator presence. How do you cultivate that gravitas, that calm, that poise that an educator is supposed to have? Get them trained as coaches so that they can manage their energy. And our energy as educators and school personnel always rubs off on young people.
Yeah.
So I get the educators trained as coaches. That is one of the key areas that I would like to work in the future.
Lovely, lovely. Educator presence, lovely. I think that's a term that will stay with me and I'll mull on this more. I think another thing that you shared that really stretched my my beliefs and imagination was that youngsters, so till now we were approaching this whole topic as youngsters being coached, but youngsters as peer coaches. That opens up a whole new world of possibilities. Thank you for sharing.
And again, I think in Western countries, this trend has already begun, and we need to catch up on that because we all talk in schools. That's the jargon. We want to create a thinking school. We're not training children to be compliant. We want them to be thinkers, and we have to create those spaces. Can be done very effectively through coaching.
Lovely, lovely. And my next question is going to be around adults. And while you did speak about the space of educators, I'm going to talk about parents now. Yeah. So, when parents approach me for coaching for their children or even for parent peer coaching, they come with a lot of positive intent for their children. But at times there could be assumptions at play from their end. Even if, it's unknowingly, most of the time it's unknowingly done from their end. What has your experience been in this space of parents and their assumptions around children or youth?
Yeah, I think all of us as grown-ups have been conditioned to believe that we have to be in control. And because children do not have an experience to draw from, children do not know much. So that is one belief and assumption that has to be challenged. Okay, so we do not have to be the authority figures. Those times are gone. These children are a completely different species. So first, acknowledge and accept as parent that I cannot offer them solutions. At best, I can hold a supportive space for them and ask good questions. Just listen to them. Be there for them. When you are with them, your 100% of attention should be on your children. That is the least that we can do. We are also distracted at all times. So that belief that you have to be the authority in their life, you have to be in control of that has to be challenged. And again, I will give you one anecdote that I wasn't around and I just walked into my 9th grade. And in general, like a principal would talk, I talked about career options and what are they planning for their future. And there were responses, regular responses. They were raising their hands and class was like lukewarm, engaged. And then I just suddenly switched the topic and I said that I've heard that you guys have got a different vocabulary. So there is a different Gen Z and Gen Alpha language. I want to understand all those phrases and slangs that you use, like Riz or vibe check and things like those. And suddenly the energy of the classroom lifted.
Wow.
You could see such a palpable, visible excitement. They were all up for it that, yes, ma'am, we will today only provide you the list of slangs. And they were so excited just because I feel that I made an effort to genuinely get down to that level and understand their world, their point of view, how they operate. And till date, they are excited. So I've set a goal for myself that I'm going to deliver a speech in the assembly for grades 9th and 10th in their Gen Z language.
Wow. Lovely.
Helping me with that. I've still not mustered enough courage to be able to do that. But we have to sort of get down to their level, leave authority and control behind, and make a genuine, earnest effort to connect with them. That's the least we can do.
Lovely, genuine, earnest effort to connect. That will stay with me.
Yeah, and it's all a part of coaching. It's all a coach approach.
Yeah, agreed.
As a parent, how has your approach changed to parenting, Shivani, after becoming a coach?
So this whole piece around experimenting with the coaching, I think that has a lot of role to play in my own parenting. In fact, even for the parents who come and meet me, for coaching for their children, or coaching for themselves as parent peer coaches, I can share a few exercises that I do with them. So there's an exercise that I make parents do to empathize with their children. It looks like, depending on the age of the child, I make them do something which is counter to the usual style. So for example, if somebody's a right-hander, I ask them to write with the left hand. I ask them to just write their name with the left hand and just sense how it feels. Was it easy? What do you think your child is going through when, he or she's learning to write? For the older folks, I ask them to do this exercise that just imagine that when you were a child or when you were young and you were going through an intense emotion, let's say anger. We all have been through it. We all go through it. How do you or how did you want people around you to react? And that something just shifts in them. There's this whole feeling of empathy that, that's around them. One more tool that I can share is the tool around curiosity. So when I ask parents that whenever they're in a difficult moment with their child, just try replacing whatever emotion you're going through with curiosity. Curiosity over anger. Curiosity over sadness. And that's when the magic of safe spaces and coaching happens.
Yeah. And just to support what you said, science supports that. These children, especially typically from the ages of 12 to 24, young adults, all of them have their emotional brain that is dominant. They are primarily operating from their emotions. Their logical brain and their executive brain that we call. If I give you Dr. Dan Siegel's hand model of brain, which I always talk about, it's that if this is your look at my fist, this part of yours is your executive brain, which is responsible for logical thinking, for planning, for all the science and math. Whereas if you open your palm, this part inside is your emotional brain, your limbic brain, which is responsible for all your emotions, all your sadness, despair, joy, excitement, all the emotions. Children are governed from here till the age of 24, imagine. This brain is still, executive brain is still in making. How we can help the executive brain is giving them more agency. Giving them more understanding and empathy, like you said, right? So one thing is address the emotional brain, get down to their level, address the emotions by empathizing. And then the second step is giving them agency through the power of decision-making to some extent. So we have to make sure, because they're operating from their emotional brain, it has to be addressed. So get down, address the emotions, hug them, create safe spaces, listen, make eye contact, address the emotional brain. Second is create as many opportunities for them as you can for agency. Taking their own calls, for taking small decisions as long as it is safe. There are many households where mother would decide, okay, you're going to be wearing this dress for your friend's birthday. Don't give agency to children. Let them make their own decisions so that their brain can develop. So it is all just not soft talk. Coaching is very, very firmly grounded in the brain science and neuroscience as well.
Yeah, I agree, Dr. Himani. So I'm also a brain-based coach. That's also my background. But every time I hear this, I still marvel at these concepts that, they just leave you in awe, and they also firm up my belief further that, coaching is one of the right paths to go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely, at that age. So I think we have addressed the misconception that young people cannot be coached and you have to be a senior corporate folk in order to be coached well. Young people are more amenable to coaching, and it is actually required at their age, their optimal brain functioning.
Right. All right. Now, I think my next question would be, while we did talk a lot about it till now, but still so that it's very clear as a takeaway to the parents, educators watching this conversation today. So if a parent or educator watching today wants to try a more coaching-based approach from tomorrow itself, what's one simple change they could make?
The simplest change, perhaps, Shivani, would be to listen. To listen more than we talk, to listen, try to ask good questions. Good questions would be open-ended questions, questions that are non-judgmental, and then the phrase non-judgmental. Create an environment where you are just not quickly making judgments about what the children are saying. So that is one thing that does not require any skills, does not require a lot of training. Just be there 100%. Your presence is important, that you're completely focused on your children for some time while you are with them. And just listen, genuinely listen.
Lovely. Thanks for sharing. So genuinely listen, non-judgmental space, open-ended questions. Yeah. Probably that's the mantra that we can take away.
That's something that is simple enough to be done right away.
Right. And maybe something that I can share from my end, if I were to share one key takeaway, I would say try experimenting with curiosity and the empathy tools that I shared. I say the word experiment because till the time people experiment and see what are the results, it can't become a practice or habit. So at least try and experiment with curiosity and empathy. That's what I would say.
One final message sort of to say, because I see quite many people here, is that coaching has to be embedded in school frameworks, because we say that we have to, like PM's vision of Viksit Bharat, we have to create children who are innovators and thinkers. In order to do that, we will have to create that space where children feel free to share, to ideate, to innovate, to reflect, to experiment. And for that, training is required. Teachers need to be coaches, needs to be student leadership coaches, sustainability coaches, as many coaches as. So top-down leadership is obsolete. It won't work in schools. Even the principals and the leaders need to be trained as coaches. Coach approach will transform the schools going forward, my firm belief.
Lovely. And I really look forward to the day when we look back at this recording and see how things have already changed in the education world and coaching world. This being one of probably the initiators of the ripple effect. So I look forward to that day.
I think this conversation should continue beyond International Youth Day. We need to have it more often, more frequently on different forums.
Agreed. All right.
Yeah.
Maybe one last closing question from my end for you, Dr. Himani. Why is this work personally very important to you?
Like I said, I think I would just reiterate that I had several opportunities to become a corporate coach. I worked with a lot of leading corporates, but then I never had the courage to leave education. It is the calling of my life. I could never just think of leaving schools. So I just live to see the kind of change that is required in the schools just to happen. And I've seen time and again, coaching made a difference. So I'm just waiting for it to happen.
Lovely. All right. So that on that note of the power of coaching and how it can make a difference, we would like to close today's session, everybody. Thank you so much for the wonderful conversation, Dr. Himani. Yeah. And thank you, dear audience, for joining in. I'll just check if there are any questions in the chat. We do have one. I'll say it out aloud, and Dr. Himani, let me know if you'd like to take this. So there's somebody who shared, my son is a teenage and a bright student with scientific experimental brain. However, he's very emotional. He gets annoyed easily and takes words to heart. How to handle it?
Well, I just said it. All teenagers are emotional. It is that time of their life. They're grappling with a lot. They're hormonal. They're emotional. And cater to the emotions. If you don't cater and address the emotions first, nothing else will get addressed. So just sit with them, try to understand, genuinely make an effort to understand the emotion. Don't try to judge the emotion, sit with the emotion, and that will help. Once the emotion is addressed, rest, everything can be taken care of.
Sit with the emotion. I like that phrase. Sit with the emotion. All right. Oh, there are a lot of questions coming in now. All right. So the next one is by Miss Aditi. She shares, thank you for an insightful session. You're welcome, Aditi. How to demystify coaching for school heads and educators?
So that's a very important question. We are in the process of ourselves creating a framework and coming up with the ways how to propagate coaching more, because definitely an awareness is needed. Coaching exists in Indian schools. Some of the very elite schools have gone for coaching, but for most of the schools, it is a new thing. So please stay connected and watch out. There are going to be more sessions which are going to be addressing this.
Lovely. That's a very hopeful statement, Dr. Himani. All right. The next one is from Siddhant. Probably I can take up this one. This is something for parents. How often are parents required to be coached along with the children? And when do we as a coach realize that parents might need coaching also in a particular scenario? That already tells me, Siddhant, that you have a growth mindset when you're putting across this question. Coaching is for everybody. Yeah, even as parents, and it's an ongoing process. I'll tell you, even as a coach myself, I engage in peer coaching conversations that are always helpful. So your question is, when do we realize that parents might also need coaching? My answer would be, I think it always helps. It always helps. All right.
So I will tell you, Siddhant, that coaching is a way of being. It is not only a skill set. Once a coach, always a coach. So I think it is worthwhile for you to look into some basic coaching skills. You can go on the internet, you would find some very good insights on coaching. And it's just a way of being. So once you adopt that way of being, things are going to only look up in terms of parenting. Shivani, what do you think?
Like that phrase, way of being. All right. Pavan shares great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing these insights. You're welcome. Shweta also shared thank you. And I think that's all in terms of questions. Anybody who would like to unmute and ask a question?
Hi, can I say something?
Hi.
I just want to say thank you for doing this. It's an important conversation, and corporate is not the only place to make an impact. I think we are more and more reaching to a place of, I call it bracket coaching. We have to coach the youth, and we also have to coach people 60 plus, because that's the number which is increasing in our country.
Yeah.
So thank you for holding this space, and for all the audience, we'll be doing more of such conversations because the idea is to generate more awareness and give more tools to people to really support their children and their students and their societies. And these are the people who are our future. So why not invest in them? So thank you. Thank you for creating this space, Shivani and Himani. Very grateful.
Thank you, Shivani, and thank you, Jaya, for this opportunity. And thank you for all the viewers who've been patient in such excellent audience.
Yes, yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Right. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.